A lot of people are wondering about the coronavirus, COVID-19, in the Bible, whether this is possibly the beginning of the end or whether this fulfills some biblical prophecy about the return of Christ. And so I wanted just to show you a quick thing about it. In Matthew 24, Jesus was giving a sermon, a talk to his disciples about the signs of his second coming and the signs of the destruction of Jerusalem. And in this chapter, you find, well, let's start in verse 3. And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, Tell us, when shall these things be, and what shall be the sign of thy coming and of the end of the world? And Jesus answered and said unto them, Take heed that no man deceive you, for many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences, that is, diseases, and earthquakes in diverse places. All these are the beginning of sorrows. Now, a lot of people look at verse 7 and they say, look at this. This describes the world today very much so. Nation rising against nation, all the wars and rumors of wars. Kingdom against kingdom, famines, right? There are many places around the world where people are starving to death, even today, while we live in the lap of luxury. And pestilences, these various diseases, viruses, plagues that are spreading around. Pestilences, some people say, look at this coronavirus, this COVID-19, this pandemic that's shutting down much of the world. Is this the pestilence that it's speaking of? And earthquakes in diverse places. Many earthquakes. Many earthquakes killing many people in these days. So people will look at that verse 7 and they'll say, is this it? And the key to that, whether coronavirus, the COVID-19, is indeed this pestilence of the last days, which Jesus was speaking of. Verse 8 provides some insight into that. All these are the beginning of sorrows. Sorrows, that word in the Greek means literally the pain of childbirth. Many versions of the Bible, many translations translate that not as sorrows, but all these are the beginning of birth pangs or birth pains. That's what that means. And how do we read into, how do we interpret the beginning of birth pains? Well, if you've ever gone through a childbirth, or if you've witnessed a childbirth, if you have children, you'll know exactly how birth pains go. They start out mild, and as time goes on, these birth pains, these contractions, as it were, they become more and more intense and more frequent, closer and closer together. And that is exactly how all of these signs will be. Earthquakes have always happened. Wars have always happened. Pestilences, plagues, diseases have always happened. The difference is that if you zoom out and look at the timeline, you will see that there is a rapid increase in both severity and in frequency. They're becoming much more intense and much more rapid. This is true with earthquakes. This is true with wars. This is true with pestilences. So yes, coronavirus in that sense is certainly a part of this prophecy of signs of the end times. It is one of the pestilences that we will see with more and more frequency and more intensity as birth pains, until finally they lead up to that day when Jesus Christ shall return.